give me 5. Say, give me 5. She'll give it, man. You gotta say it.
Give me 5. Give me 5. Oh, she actually did. That's crazy.
Spot. Oh, yeah.
So imagine everything that you were made to believe about something was not as true as you were thinking. There's, just to use an example, there's a lot of individuals that believe that this world that we live in, this life, it's a matrix. It's a matrix run by an architect that has given it factors of a simulation. And so think about the aspect of this world, this life, being a simulation. Just using this as an example, not saying that this is anything, or just using this as an example. Taking that example of this being a simulation, this life, everything, every encounter, every experience, every reason, everything that happens, the way it happens, being an act within a simulation by or from or attributed to a simulator. And the liberation being liberation from the simulation. Liberation from, in a sense, what we are made to believe is comfortable. What we are made to believe is formidable life and lifestyle and life current. What if this was all a deception? Just what if we're living this life thinking that we are who we are, doing what we are and where we are. We're doing everything in our efforts to do what we're doing in life. We're just doing, and we're seeing, and we're living. But what if it all was a deception? What if it all was a deception to where what we are attributing to being factors of something more, what we are attributing to being factors of occurrence or coincidence or achievement or accomplishment or disappointment, what if it is all scripted? What if it's all scripted? And what if it's a scripted experience? What if it is a scripted experience that for some reason, somehow, we are to break out of the trend to find us in it all? And in finding us in it all, being able to capture the essence of our character while still within this simulation and while still governed by that simulator, yet gaining liberty of mind to understand how the frequency of this dimension works, that we may work with it for further achieving whatever we may achieve, or for moving into whatever we would move into with this now new level of awareness, level of consciousness. So thinking about that, how it is a deception, and yet from within the deception, there's to be we're here for growth. Despite whatever simulation we assume, despite whatever we're thinking, despite whatever is happening, we're here for the purpose of growth to escape whatever we believe has been just simulating. That we may no longer become a robot, or that we may no longer be a robot or an actor, simply just an actor, but that we may now know our role, that we may know our role, that we may play our role better. Playing our role better, we're getting acquainted not with lines that have been drafted for us, but now we are, in a sense, not simply just acting, we are also the stage, and we are also the director, and we are also the screenplay writer. We are also everything more than simply just walking around and doing. In that state of enlightenment, understanding that we have been deceived in our experience to capture more of its essence. What if, concerning the image of God, I'm saying all of this because what if concerning the image of God, we have been deceived to believe that the image of God is what we are to attain, but in reality, it's what we are to escape. What if? The subject of the image of God is an interesting one. It's an interesting one, and it's one that, when I do explain it and when I go through the Bible and really just get the position, it draws a lot of curiosity, because just speaking about, or not even speaking, just thinking and meditating on what that could be, the image of God, in the likeness of, that's how they were created. Now, it's really tricky, because I'm pretty sure all would agree that John 4:24 is on point. God is a spirit. And I'm pretty sure all would agree Luke 24:39, a spirit does not have flesh and bones, is also on point. Now, we may have ideas or thoughts about where that can go when it comes to understanding what that image is and how that creation took place. But when you factor in all of these little elements, these very essential elements, in order to be able to foresee what the author of the book of Genesis also foresaw, well, then that leads to a very different conclusion than what is automatically assumed. To be created in the image of God, it really doesn't mean to be created as a human being. It in essence doesn't even really mean to be created as spirit. It really means to be created by intention. Created by, in, from, and through the intention of the one that is doing the creation. So being created in the image of God, even as we've seen the Bible broken down, that image is very particular, because the context of that word isn't what we would, immediately draw. And there is a lot that we can conclude, from just our opinion or just from what we would think from just that image. We can let our opinion and our imagination just go, and it will go. But allowing the Bible to speak and to put that into frame, you're seeing that the image of God is actually a form. You're seeing that the image of God is actually a form. And then you're seeing that the image of God is actually the glory of God. And so you have to think about what that glory is, what that form is. When you go back and when you look at what all of that really comes to and what all of that means, you're seeing that the image is really likeness. And the likeness of God is really the praise, as we've seen. All of these terms just meaning the same thing. And so with all of that, from prior meetings that we've had and just dissecting this, could it be that it is the intention of the living God that we be created in the image of God for the purpose of escaping it? Could it be that creation in the image of God is not as positive as we think? Could it be that being created in the image of God is actually deplorable? Is actually being created with a deplorable, conditioned mind. A mind deplorably conditioned. Is that a word? Deplorably? With a mind conditioned poorly. Just imagine that. Imagine that being the trap. Just as in other sectors, you would say that this world, being a simulation created and enforced by an architect's simulator, is a trap. It is a trap. When you get down to the root of basic philosophy, the trap is not just the world, but us, our bodies. What is within us is encased within a trap. So we are encased what is within us is encased within a trap within a trap. What if it's the same thing when it comes to the image of God? What if the image of God is actually a trap? And once you can understand that trap, once you're liberated from it, well then that's when you begin to live.
Knowing Bible is a course for learners wanting to grow closer to themselves and to their Creator. There is a reason why we trust the Bible. There is a reason why the Bible moves us to celebrate it. There is also a reason why we feel hesitant to let the Bible's words satisfy us. Traditional religious theory isn't always satisfactory. Carrying a belief without proof will soon aggravate our thoughts and feelings. Knowing Bible is a course that is designed to wake us up to who and what our belief is. Knowing Bible is for learners that want a living experience beyond conventional religion. Don't let this educational opportunity slip away from you.
And so think about Genesis 2 now. Adam. Think about Genesis 2, Adam. Because Adam was not created in the image of God. Was he? That's a trick question. Adam was not created in the image of God, but was he? And I'm just keeping the illustration simple and the figures simple, just for this thought, is that when we find Adam, he is not created in the likeness of anything but himself. Created in the likeness of nothing but himself from the ground. And yet what gives him life is breath. Is that the image of God that just in that scene? Is that the image of God from the Genesis chapter 1? Well, when you look at the imagery and the context, it actually isn't. Genesis 1 is its own record. Genesis 2 is a continuation of that record, where we find one born from the dust. And just keeping in mind, as I began maybe some episodes prior, when I began to talk about this subject of Genesis, how to view it, the context. Is there an individual that was there that wrote this when this happened immediately when God created the heavens and the earth? And the answer is no. This isn't a literal thing. The one writing this is writing this from the perspective of either a revelation or a vision or a stream of thought. And so when we're seeing Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 and also Genesis 3, we may say, they're written from stream of thought. And so being written in stream of thought, they have to be decoded according to stream of thought, in which the context of from whence they have been given, they have arrived to the author, and of which they are received. And so when we're seeing that one was formed from the dust, there are plenty of illustrations throughout the scriptures to show that dust, I will increase thy seed as the dust. I will increase thy seed as the stars. That term dust is the same throughout the scriptures, synonymous with seed. So in reality, the individual Adam is created, yes, it says from the ground of the dust, but in reality, that dust is a seed, a specific seed. And not seed as in literal germination, seed as in offspring, seed as in host, seed as in assembly, seed as in holy seed. From that ground of that offspring of dust, the individual Adam was created. Taken from out and given breath. It is just as much as Genesis 1 is an allegory, so is Genesis 2. And so I'm saying all of this because we're seeing the transition right before our eyes from Genesis 1 to Genesis 2. Genesis 1, you have individuals created. And I'm going to keep it as individuals. I'm I'm going to keep it simple. You have individuals created in the image of God, or in the glory of God, or in the name of God, or in the praise of God. And the name, glory, praise, image of God, it's not literal. This is a philosophical image. This is the character that these individuals are created in. This is the character that they are created in. Transition to Genesis 2, and you have the story of another creation. Of another creation. The creation of Adam. From the dust of the ground. Planted in his own separate location. And then another creation of animals commencing. Two separate creations, yet one record. Genesis 2 is the individual conversation waking up from the trap of Genesis 1. Genesis 2 is the record of the individual conversation waking up from the trap established in Genesis 1. Which trap is the trap of being created in the image of God? So we're speaking freely, just speaking freely here. Speaking freely because we've put these pieces together of what the image of God is. And we've seen that the image of God being the likeness of a disposition. The image of God being the likeness of a disposition. And that disposition perfectly illustrated in Genesis chapter 1. And when I attack this subject, that's how I like to, at first, view it. Because where else can we find the image of God except first within the chapter that we are at? And so Genesis 1 gives us a clear definition of what the image of God is and how we ought to view it. The image of God is a routine. It is a routine of commanding and then having what is commanded done for good, for favor, for righteousness. It is the routine of commanding and having what is commanded done. To be created in the image of God is to be created in that routine. And that routine is very specific. That routine is very specific. That routine isn't a routine that's just given to any Joe, any Sarah, anyone just walking around, right? That's not a routine that anyone that's just living can say, oh wow, I'm commanding and it's done. Wow, I'm in that position. Well, the Bible, just think about it in this way, is that the Bible is written from the perspective of religion, philosophy. That's the underlying context of the scriptures. And every illustration and every allegory and every parable, that's the underlying theme. Related to religion, related to philosophy, that's the go-to of this book. Anything else comes secondary or third or fourth or whatever after that. You would have it, but the primary is where my mind is at. The primary, when we enter into the Bible, it is a book of philosophy, it is a book of religion, it is a book of religious philosophy, it is a book correcting religion. Not giving religion, correcting. That's what this book is for. It's for correcting religion, both public and personal. And so the illustrations match. So when we're seeing that the likeness of commanding and then it being done, it's not given to anyone but a specific group of individuals. And this specific group of individuals are the specific group of individuals that we would link to religion, philosophy, or religious philosophy in that case. And that is to the priesthood. The man within the scriptures, and I've gone through this in plenty of episodes prior, looking at this term man, but man in right context, when in the scriptures, is not talking about literal man. It's talking about mankind. In the type of kind of man that the Bible is talking about is the priest, is the minister. The man is the priest or the minister. So when we're seeing that mankind was created in the likeness of God, and when we're seeing what this likeness is, We have to be able to understand the category of individual that this likeness is for, because this isn't a likeness for everyone or for everything, but for a specific associated group of individuals. It is only the individual that is connected to religious philosophy or to religion that has the power to have what is written, done and obeyed for righteousness and for creation. We don't have to guess at who that is. This is the priest of the world. This is the minister of the world. This is the theologian of the world. This is what is called mankind. They're called mankind, and they are created in the image of God, or in the likeness of the character commanding, for the purpose of doing their here doing, because that's just their code, that's just their DNA. Their DNA is to write with the pen and to have what is written with the pen done. Whether that be a rite or a baptism or a theory or an opinion, that's just in their DNA. And to be created in the image of God, it is to have that DNA within you, that DNA for a specific group. Priesthood, priests, theologians.
We are to have, as is said and believed when it comes to life and religion, faith. But when it comes to exercising faith, a very crucial aspect of having and exercising faith isn't mentioned. In order to have faith in anything, we need to know what we would have faith in. This book looks into how the Bible defines the process of justification. We are supposed to know what we believe. Personal knowledge will bring life to our experience with the Bible. Get Justification to know how to safely take care of your faith.
And while that may sound interesting, just have to be seen before in the book of Isaiah, their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. Yet will I commit myself to do a wondrous work among them. The wisdom of their wise men and of their prudent shall be turned upside down. So this idea of moving on from what we believe that underlying frame is, this idea of moving on from what we believe that character to be. Because just what if that character is a trap? Just what if that character is a trap? And just what if Galatians 3:13 lets us know that fact, that it is a trap? What if everything within the scriptures lets us know that the image of God, that the routine of commanding for it to be done for the sake of creation and righteousness is a trap? What if this is the wisdom that is to be overturned? And what if this is the wisdom that is overturned because it is a trap? What if being created in the image of God is actually an insult? Looking at the order of how the Bible breaks this down, looking at the way that the terms that the Bible uses, synonymously with image, factoring in all of that with elements of what the perceived nature of God should be or should be thought of. God is a spirit. Spirit doesn't have flesh and bones. When we just factor in all of that, when we take away our opinion of whatever impression we may have of what that means, and when we just think about what the Bible is saying, well, we can see what the image of God is. It's not a literal image. This is a philosophical disposition that a certain class of individuals have, that a mankind or priesthood, better term, priesthood has, and that they have been created in. Is this really what we ought to believe is just? Especially seeing in the next chapter an entirely different creation of giving breath. Prior to giving breath of one, having an exodus out of the dust, and then receiving breath, and then receiving his specific location, and then receiving a new creation, and then receiving a mate. An entirely new platform has been established in Genesis 2 from Genesis 1. You think about all of these factors and looking at them not as through the lens of our outlook, whether that is a traditional or spiritual or whatever, letting that rest for a little bit, just let the Bible just be, like taking us out of it and allowing those terms to form a conclusion for us concerning the image of God, or the likeness of God, or the praise of God, which is the glory of God, which is the name of God. As we've seen episodes prior, that name, image, glory, and praise is a disposition of controlling or of programming through commandment for the purpose of creating. So when we're seeing, in episodes prior, I've looked at Moses, you've given them statutes, laws, made known to them your Sabbath by the hand of Moses, and different verses. When we're seeing the Moses figure, the quote-unquote Moses of every generation, when we're seeing Moses, not just the particular individual, but the figure, the actor, putting forward the image of God, when we're seeing this, and then we're seeing Genesis 2 commence with the creation completely transformative, we should really see the exodus that's taking place from Genesis 1 to Genesis 2. We should see that the Bible and the author of the book of Genesis is giving us a secret, about the trap confining our devotional experience to the earth when it should be transcending it.